The other day I was talking to someone and they told me that they just stopped smoking. And you'd think that's good news, right? They stopped smoking. They stopped an addiction. That's great, isn't it? No, it isn't. And here in this video, I want to explain to you why it's so hard to stop addictions, addictive behaviors, right? And there is a way where the addiction will totally leave you. There is one way to do that. But most of us don't know that way. And so we fight with our addictive behaviors. We want to get rid of them. We try to will them out of our lives. And then we fail miserably because that's not the way to go. And so when I hear people saying, okay, I just stopped smoking, and I know that there was brute force almost used in that process, it breaks my heart and it just frustrates me. So that's why I'm making this video. So let me explain to you what the addict archetype is about, because addiction is a pattern, right? It's a specific pattern, and if you understand the pattern, then you'll be able to heal it in your life. So the addict archetype is, imagine it's this energy. It's this man, let's say, that is floating in air, looking down and looking at human beings. That archetype has a little bit of a jester, a lover, a very passionate archetype, etc., right? And also, so suddenly it sees you, right? And it sees you and it's attracted by you because it sees that at some point in that moment, you're going lower and lower and lower. You're going into a low state. Maybe you're going into pain, into sadness, into something that is low, right? And you've no clue what to do with that. It's like you're becoming unconscious in that moment. And so that archetype comes in, swoops in, and it takes you out of that state. So it takes you from your low to a high. It takes you from your low to numbness, right? And that's what this archetype is about. And so you go high, right? You don't deal with your low and all that. You go high, you feel better. Maybe in that moment you feel alive. That's exactly what you wanted, right? There's so many things. It's great. But it's temporary. So the next day, you fall back, right? And it's even lower, right? Because you haven't dealt with the low part. You haven't dealt with the issue, with what is happening inside of you. You just came out of it. And so again, you go down. And again, this archetype will come again and it will try to take you out of there again into numbness, into a high, right? Into a higher high, into more numbness. And it goes. And that's in brief how this archetype, how this pattern is, right? And so, as you can see, the addictive behavior is not really the issue. The addictive behavior is actually a temporary solution to what is happening in you. So when you just look at that, when you start getting rid of the addictive behavior, you're getting rid of that part. You're getting literally rid of the solution. And so that is why when people force themselves out of that addictive behavior, what they're doing is that they're getting rid of the solution, but they haven't found another one. They haven't dealt with the source of the problem. And so that's why it's going to fail, it's going to be very difficult, it's going to fail, and then you'll go back to the same addictive behavior, or another addictive behavior will crop up, right? But let's go back to what the problem is. Because if you deal with the problem, this addict has no purpose to come to you. I mean, the solution is not needed. It will just, so what will happen is that the addiction will just go away. Naturally, you won't even have to do anything about it. You will find yourself without it. It will just leave you. And that's when a healing has happened, right? It's not like you're going from one addiction to the other. It's not like you're trying to will it out. It's like you're dealing with the problem is solved, and the addiction goes away. That's how it is. So, going back to what I said at the beginning, when the addict swoops in, right? When the addict swoops in, it's like you need in that moment, what you can remind yourself of is that you are in a low state, right? And that's where you need to focus. And in order for you to understand what I'm talking about, I want you to go back. I want you to pause this video. And I'd like you to go back to a moment in time when you were reaching for your addictive substance, whatever it is, whether it's food, coffee, a person, right? Facebook, YouTube, and so on. If you go back to that moment, and just in that moment, just be still and start feeling what is happening inside of you as you're reaching towards that substance. What you will notice is that there is a lot happening inside of you. It's almost like you're completely unconscious for a second, right? It's like you're just not feeling yourself. And then suddenly you will start feeling that there's all these emotions. You're almost trying to crawl out of your skin. And there's so much distress happening inside of you. And that's the distress that is just telling you to find something so that distress goes away, right? So that distress is numbed out. And so even if you're there for a few seconds, which is in itself healing, by the way, but the fact that you're there for those few seconds and you start feeling it and understanding what is happening inside of you, you can understand why in that moment, if somebody snatches away that addictive behavior from you, how mean that is. It's literally, for me, it's self-violence in that moment. And we do it very naturally, very normally, because we don't know what is happening. And that's why it's so important that you really realize that, you feel that. And so you start understanding why focusing on taking away the only thing that is making you feel good in that moment, that is actually helping you in that moment, is just not loving, right? And you can do this exercise by going back to that moment, but next time this happens, next time you're reaching out for that addictive behavior, like even for a few seconds, feel into that, feel what is happening inside of you. And I hope that will help you understand why. Don't focus on the addictive behavior, right? As I said, it will go on its own when you've created resolution, when you've dealt with your issue, right? And so now let's go to the issue. What is actually happening inside of you so that you can deal with that. When you think about addiction, I want you to imagine that inside of you there is a hole, right? And it's a void. There's nothing there. And then imagine that around it, what is keeping that hole back there is a layer of self-loathing, right? And then on top of the layer of self-loathing, there is the addiction, right? That is like keeping it together. And so when that addictive behavior, when you're going towards that addictive behavior, the first thing that will come up, the first thing I want you to realize in that moment, and maybe the best way to realize that is to imagine this. I'm sure you've seen a person that has addiction issues and suddenly the addictions go so bad. They're so intense that that person just finds themselves homeless, right? Living on the bench and sleeping on the bench, all sprawled. And for everyone to see. And they're, maybe they're, I don't know, it's after an alcoholic spree or whatever, where they're completely lying there, not caring about their body, how they look, and they're just there for everyone to see, right? And for me, when I see these kind of images, it's always everything. There's nothing random in this universe, but that image represents the self-loathing that someone with addictions lives in, right? At some point, it's like I don't care. I'll hurt my body and eat things I shouldn't be eating. I'll hurt my body and smoke and drink. I just don't care, because the level of self-loathing that I have is just over the roof, right? And so I'm giving you this image so that you can see that there's, there may be less or more, but there is definitely that a very big level of self-loathing that is in someone who has problems with addictions, right? And that's the part that needs to be addressed first, right? Because if you don't care about yourself, let me just explain a little bit about self-loathing. I've made a video on hate, so I'll link it down below so that you understand better about hate. But self-loathing is about hate, right? And hate is about pain. When we hate, it means there's a pain in us. And what we're looking for in that moment is empathy. The way to heal that pain is through empathy. And as I said, in the link down below, you'll have more about this. But in that moment, when these addictive behaviors start coming up, if you can remember that in that moment, what is coming up is pain. Like there's that self-loathing, and that behind the self-loathing, there is pain. And that what you're looking is empathy. Not somebody to take away what you have, not somebody to take away the thing that is helping you temporarily, but you need empathy in that moment. You need to have someone next to you who can understand you. You need to go down to that level of pain and feel into that and be with that part. And maybe ask people to be with you with that part. That's what you're looking for. And that's where healing starts. Right? So in that moment when you're reaching out, how can you give yourself that empathy? What can you do? Can you call someone? Can you be with someone? That's really how you start. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to do anything. You're trying to be with yourself as you are. Another way that you can work with this, which is very direct, is that if you have these addictive behaviors, it's just law that you will have somebody, at least one person in your vicinity, very close to you, that is very judgmental towards you. Meaning that it's almost like they will mirror back to you. And you have these judgmental people because they will mirror back to you your judgments, your self-loathing, right? And it can be, for example, let's say you're a mother and you smoke, right? And you have your child telling you all the time, you didn't smoke, why didn't you smoke? You said you would quit, etc., right? Those are the judgments that you have inside of you, right? That is the self-loathing where you're like, oh my God, again, I'm so weak. I can't do even this. You know, that feeling of, I just can't trust myself. I hate myself. I just don't like being here. And all that, right? And that's the moment when, you go into that and you empathize. Because in that moment, when you say those words, every word is like a stab, right? I'm so weak. Stab. Pain, right? I can't even do this. Stab. Pain, right? I hate being in myself. I hate being me. Stab. Pain, right? And it goes on and on. And so the more you do that, the lower you go, right? Now you're feeling even worse. Guess what will happen next? You go towards it, right? And I'm telling you this because most people think, I'll stop smoking, I'll stop that, and then these thoughts or whatever I'm feeling are going to go away, right? And then I'll be fine. No, it's completely the other way around. You work on your thoughts, on what is coming up, on the way you feel about yourself. And then the addictions go away. So going back to that child, if you're a mother and you have that child, or anybody else, I'm just giving you a concrete example. In that moment, it's about you you literally starting to become aware of what is happening when that person, that relationship there, judges you, right? When you perceive that judgment, what is happening inside of you? What kind of words are coming up? What do you think they think about you? It's also about you. That's the moment when, and this is empathy, right? You go down to the level of where that part is, that part that hates and so is in pain. So you go down to that part. And you really take your time. There's nothing to correct. There's nothing to change. You're just being with that part. And you start becoming aware of the thoughts that you have, of how you treat yourself, of the inner dialogue that is happening inside of you, of how each time you say certain words, it's actually like you feel it like a stab, right? And by going there slowly, you will start becoming more and more aware of the pain that is happening inside of you. And you start becoming more in tune with it. You start taking it in. And as you take it in, that pain slowly dissolves, right? Because that's what it wants. It wants empathy. Pain wants empathy. it gets empathy, it goes away, right? And so, at the beginning, when I explained about how, when you reach out for that when you're reaching out for that addictive behavior, most of the time, you're not even aware of the pain that is inside of you. And one of the biggest reasons why that is, it's because a part of you is making you unconscious so that you don't feel that pain. Because that part thinks that you don't know how to deal with the pain. And this is the only way. The addiction is the only way to numb or to get high, right? And in this moment, by you slowly going back to you and working on it and feeling slowly into your pain, you're showing yourself that you can do it. You're showing yourself that, and you're learning how to do it. You're learning how to be with it, how to go through it. You're really connecting more and more with yourself. And so again, that addictive behavior at some point will not be needed at all. The deeper you go, the more that addiction will just make no sense, right? And now, let me go to the second part. I told you that inside there's this hole, right? There's this void. There's self-loathing, the addiction, and inside there's this void. And this void is one of the biggest pains. It's the main problem with addictions. That void is that feeling of there's literally a hole in me, right? You literally feel that there's a hole, there's a void in you, there's something missing. Somebody once said, and I'll never forget, I'm missing something I never had. That's usually the feeling that there is. And so at some point you will feel that void and it will be scary. But it's about really plunging into it and feeling into that. And that void is about your lack of connections. It's you trying to find a deeper connection with yourself, a deeper connection with life, and a deeper connection with everything around you, whether it's people, your job, and everything. And many times there's this story of I remember somebody saying that an addict is someone who looks for God in a bottle of whiskey or wine, I don't know. But I think that explains it all. Because it's not about God in itself, but it's about that need for depth. And if you have those addictive problems, it's because that depth is lacking. It's like there's a void instead of depth. And everything you will do is to find that depth, even for a few seconds. And you can see that when you get high or on anything. For a certain moment, you feel fulfilled. You'll feel alive. You'll feel animated, right? You'll feel happy and all that. It's like you're connected with everything. You're connected with everyone. You're open, there's that feeling. That's the feeling. That's that depth that you're looking for. And that is shown to you in those moments. And so, by you starting to connect with yourself, because self-loathing is a disconnection, right? It's like, I can't be with me. And I can't be even with other people. I don't even know how to create connections with people. Maybe you'll start feeling that that void is also showing you the void outside. How your relationships feel void. How your job or other things in your life feel void. Right? They feel so shallow. And so, if you want to heal, you need to start creating deep relationships. Like with everything, with yourself, with other people, with your job, with life in general. Because otherwise you'll just wilt away. Because that void is that hunger that is driving you insane, right? And trying to find, like that guy, trying to find God in a bottle of whiskey and all that. It's like, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. So it's about really in that moment starting to make conscious relationships, deep relationships, a priority. Becoming more vulnerable. Telling people who you are. Showing how you feel. Showing up as you are. Knowing that some people will reject you. And then slowly you'll see that there are certain people that will really love you for who you are. And with other people really putting your energy into deepening more and more those relationships in every single way. And as you do that, that void will be filled. Like every day, a little bit, And as it's filled, automatically, you don't need to focus on the addictive behavior. It will just go away on its own. And, when it comes to self-loathing, when you have these addictive behaviors, you just don't like yourself. So you don't know what you want, right? You don't have a good relationship with any part of you, with your mind, with your body, and all that. The more you connect with yourself, the more you connect with other people, with life, etc., automatically it's like everything starts working for you. When it comes to your body, you will know what to give it because it will tell you what it needs. So you don't have to think, you don't have to tell yourself, oh, I can't have sugar, oh, I can't have this, You will know what you want because you come from this connected place. And that part of you will tell you what it needs. So you'll just go that way. And you'll see that you'll eat more healthily. You will start exercising more, and it will come just naturally without you having to impose it upon yourself or without you having to get rid of certain things in your life. Right? So let me stop there. Right? So let me just say that if you're trying to get rid of a certain addictive behaviors, don't. That's going against yourself. That addictive behavior is actually helping you in that moment. What you need to do is you need to start going into the parts of you where you feel self-loathing. You need to go into the part of you that feels void. And you need to start connecting with yourself, with other people, and you need to start creating more depth in your life. I hope this is clear. If you have any questions, any comments, let me know down below.